The following recordings are part of the Daedalus operation, a top-secret experiment taking place in authorized by. Only authorized members may listen to these files. 400 hours. We have arrived at the testing site. The others seem pretty upbeat, but I don't share their feelings. It's not my first choice, hardly even my last choice, if I'm being honest. I was assigned here because I've had issues with authority, kicked to the bottom of the totem pole, and given the most grueling of tasks in hopes that I'll eventually resign or wind up killing myself. The assignment my former commanding officer told me was where good men went to die. Don't be deceived into thinking you're ready for what's going to happen here. You aren't. And you never will be. Actually, I took those words to heart as I passed through the triple layer of security and took a moment to calm my heart with a quick smoke. Not the best of habits, I know. But I had also been told that anything outside the quarantine zone wasn't going to be allowed in. All my personal effects, memories of my time serving the military, even the picture of my girlfriend would be left behind. Someone told me that it wasn't too late for me to run and hide. My new boss, a nerfed merc named Roland Matthias, he was either East European or Mediterranean, but he looked like he was the type that meant business. Probably seen twice as many battles as me. He was counting inventory as his soldiers set up base camp, and a senior communications officer was explaining how we'd be able to transmit anything from the other side once we went through. So, this is for real? I asked, recalling the bizarre way the mission had been described when I had been told that I was headed to this godforsaken place. The file was thin. It claimed that the building we were now entering had experienced an incident relating to an experiment only about 5 months ago. Since that time, 4 teams had attempted to discern what had happened. None had returned successfully. According to the last transmission, there were large fluctuations in radio waves and electromagnetism. There was a wall of noise, a glitch in the very fabric of our reality. Squad had come to call this zone as a liminal gateway. The only footage we had obtained from the other side showed drab corridors that went on forever, fluorescent lights that hardly provided any illumination at all, and a sense of emptiness that filled anyone who watched the media with a sense of dread. When I saw the report, I had assumed it was some sort of sick joke, or a confusion in the mission statement. But now, as we prepared to barge into the abandoned building, acting as though it was a battle zone, I realized this was more dangerous than anyone had imagined. They told me to get my suit on and be ready to move out in 1 hour. I took the time to call my girlfriend. She didn't even know about my assignment, and wasn't entirely sure how to explain it. Thankfully, I only got her voicemail, so I made it quick. Hey, it's me, I'm on the field again, just like you wanted. I'm about to head out, but I wanted to make sure you're doing okay. And we haven't had much time to talk, but I think I'd like to change that. Once this is over, I can just come home. Hell, I wish I could now. I wish I could just run into your arms. The message beeped and I cursed myself, realizing I didn't have enough time to say all the things I wanted to say. I've made so many mistakes to wind up here. My superiors likely wanted me to enter this building and never return. I suited up, took a deep breath. It's time to prove them wrong. 500 hours. I told myself as Matthias finished getting the others ready, I'd do my best to familiarize myself with the names of my fellow comrades. We were but a skeleton crew meant to only investigate as much as possible, report back to HQ, but it was soon very clear that I wasn't the only one here who had been sent to be forgotten. Vincent Carter, team's physician, said that he'd been given the assignment after a botched surgery in Boston. Mr. Lang said there were 2 sisters that needed my assistance. Now, I was on holiday near Evergrove anyway. Tried to save them, but honestly, he'd called me too late. He didn't like that, given the fact that I had alcohol in my breath. Well, I don't have to tell you what happened next, he told me, gesturing aimlessly to the entrance of the abandoned building. I was focusing on the darkness and thinking back to the footage I'd seen, asking aloud to Commander Roland, where does the power source come from? Apparently it was one of many questions that needed to be answered. Weatherby and an analyst that seemed close to Roland was helping to set up a tethering system. All of us would be interconnected to one another via simple pulleys and ropes, as though we were planning a spelunking expedition. It's easy to get lost in there. Make sure you don't lose sight of one another, Weatherby advised all of us. An older soldier that looked like he should already be past retirement barked a complaint as the analyst finished the hooks on the ropes and gave me a gruff look. I immediately noticed that he had a long scar running along the left side of his face, along with a glass orb where his eyes had once been. The older man asked if I had something to bother him with. Commander Matthias told us to send out any messages to family or friends in the event that we don't return. Didn't see you doing that, I commented, as we walked towards the darkness. Nobody out here left for me. Only the shadows are my comfort now, he said, spitting on the ground. Yes, surely there must be someone. He turned and jabbed a finger in my chest, angry that I was still pressing the issue. I said there was no one. Leave it at that. I belong here, the old man growled. I stood in place for a moment, confused by his words as Vincent explained that Marsh was the only one that volunteered. He didn't know why. There were rumors, of course, but nothing solid. I shook off the unease and nodded, activating the light on my helmet, followed the others inside. Matthias was nearing the east wall, setting up small rectangular boxes on the edge of the concrete barrier, and then Weatherby was going to each one and checking to make sure everything was secure. Roland told us to cover our ears. I barely had time to listen as the strange resonating noise filled the empty building. Then I noticed as the noise got louder, that the wall itself seemed to shimmer the way a body of water would, rippling and vibrating frantically as our commander gave us the go-ahead. I hesitated, still unsure about any of this, but it wasn't like I had a choice. The others were already barreling towards the wall as if it wasn't there, and the rope would tug me forward anyway. I closed my eyes and ran as well, the shimmering wall looming ahead. I screamed as I thought that I would collide with it. And then I did hit it, and all around me, reality seemed to glitch. Walls shifted and jolted in and out of existence, hardly there and as firm as a brick all at once, and then I fell to the ground in front of me. It was shag carpet, the kind you might see in a hotel hallway, and as I opened my eyes I saw that there was no need for the night vision anymore. The dim fluorescent lights revealed the long, widening corridors beyond. Immediately my eyes darted about to find the others as I looked down at the rope. It was stretching forward down the hall, but I didn't see much farther than perhaps 20 feet until it fell in complete darkness. Then I swiveled around, expecting to see Carter entering from the real world into the strange beyond from the fake wall. Instead, I saw the same exact, endless corridors, and the rope that was tied to my body that connected to him was stretching in that direction as well for 20 feet until the darkness covered it up. Suddenly, I felt very unsure which way I had arrived, or which way I should be going. The walls and ceiling all looked the same bland colors. There were no markings or anything to tell me which direction my companions had gone. So I tried to shout, my voice sounding hollow as it echoed down the hallway. There was no answer. I walked over to the nearest wall and took out a Swiss Army knife from my pocket. I wrote an X on the wall to try to tell me where I was. Then I turned to the left and tugged at the rope, calling to Carter and the others. When silence answered back, I started to pull at the rope and use it as a guide like Matthias had intended. One step at a time in this strange dimension, I said. 700 hours. I don't know how much time's passed since I arrived, but it certainly feels like at least a few hours, because now I'm hungry. I've been following the rope, calling to my fellow soldiers every 100 feet, and wondering if I'll ever be alone forever as I wander these empty liminal spaces. I tell myself not to give up, but it's very hard when it feels like the odds are against me. I've somehow been going in circles as I found the X that I marked on the wall at least 22 times. It doesn't feel like I've turned around. The rope continues to stretch on infinitely. I decided to take a break and eat the first part of my rations, thinking perhaps if I stay out, someone will find me. I'm partially correct. It's not someone. It's something. 0830 hours. I heard something in the distance. It's a low grumbling noise that made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. I knew that it couldn't be any animal I was familiar with. It reminded me of an old video cassette recording, warping and beyond understanding, shrieking and scrambled. Somewhere in front of me. The lights above my head flickered for a moment as the noise got louder, and I stood up, keeping my hand on my rapid-fire weapon, peering down the next endless corridor where the rope stretched to. I saw something in the shadows. It was distorted and scrawny, warped all at the same time, had at least 5 appendages, twisted neck, a head that looked larger than its body, a mouth on its abdomen, and claws where its eyes should have been. It moved the way that a scorpion would, its long, messy piercers stabbing in the ground as it crawled, first on the floor, then to the walls, and then the ceiling. Every time it made a noise, the entire corridor resonated with a vibrating ring of energy. It was hurrying towards me. Immediately, I opened fire on the creature, a string of bullets flying from my weapon towards its open stomach. As it got hit, the fleshy tendrils of the legs and flailing arms widened and shook madly, absorbing each blow as if it were just striking at the air, and it was growing larger, too, until the absence of its head was too bulky to even hold its own weight, and it tumbled into the room alongside me. I panicked. I cut the rope, running back the way that I had come, to the right, and away from the paths that I had been following. The halls kept stretching on and on, as I weaved and hid, trying to make a distance between myself and the monster. The screams vibrated and changed from being almost on top of me to being far away as I kept moving left then right down the corridors, wondering if I was even getting farther away or not. It was difficult to be sure that there was any progress being made. Then I turned a corner and nearly ran straight into one of the others. Vincent. His eyes wide with fear as he grabbed my shoulders and clasped his hand over my mouth next to prevent any sounds from being heard. We both hunkered down next to a wall as we heard the creature scream and thrash somewhere in a different corridor. Both of us ready to run if necessary. Once the noise died down, I let out a visible sigh of relief and looked down at the rope. He had also untethered, meaning the chances of us being able to meet with the others was even less likely now. He asked if I'd seen anyone else. I shook my head no. He pointed to the right. "Come, there's something you need to see," he said. 10-20 hours. I'm not entirely sure if the measurement of time means much anymore, but I've been trying my best to keep track of our journey here. Carter seemed to know where he was going, following scratches on the wall to the east as he kept his weapon steady and we kept moving. Every so often he would freeze, listen, hide, and hear the strange monster as it shambled past us. And never get too close. Made me wonder if perhaps the creature itself was also lost here. Same as us. Soon I was beginning to wonder if these markings were ever going to lead anywhere, when I saw what looked like a door, and I nearly laughed in astonishment. Running towards it, I unlatched the handle and found myself staring at what resembled a fire escape of some kind. Stairs that seemed to go on infinitely forever above and below us. Carter reached into his pack and took out a small empty water bottle, tossing it to the stairwell below. We didn't hear it hit the bottom, only seeing it vanish in the bottomless pit. "I was about to go exploring this passage when that thing started to hunt me," Carter explained. I wondered how far it went as I checked the rations. We had at least 4 more hours worth of food, but that didn't count for water supply. "We need to find others soon," I told him. Carter didn't respond, instead using the weapon on his left shoulder to aim towards the darkness and try to judge how far down we would be going. Carter shot a random bullet into the pit, wondering if it went all the way to hell. We watched as it flew up and out of sight, and I shook my head as we climbed down. I'd say we're already there. 1,800 hours. We stopped for a break and I offer what little water I have left to share with Carter as he slid down and I stretch my legs. The stairs are endless, just like the corridor we came from, and I'm beginning to get the feeling that we may never leave. It makes my throat feel dry and my legs are numb to the reality that I'll likely die here, just as it was intended. He said that Marsh would know what to do and then began to explain why the old man had volunteered. Carter laughed and tossed his empty food can into the pit. He claimed that he was searching for something, like he had been here before. I don't know. Didn't make sense, but he definitely seemed to know what he was doing. She was the commanding officer instead of Matthias. Must be some rhyme and reason to this labyrinth. I was about to reply when I heard something and looked up above. It sounded like a scream. A second later, a body fell right past me and I fumbled back against the wall. A moment later, we heard a loud thud. Getting to our feet, we ran down about 5 more floors of stairs to see that the analysts that had been hired to keep us alive was now the first victim of this maze. I looked above us into the infinite stairwell. Do you think it was that thing? And it's following us? I asked. Carter pointed his weapon towards the corridor to the left. This one was narrow and cramped, leading to a second door which had marked on it a word that looked like it was in Latin or something. Vincent whispered that it was called Theseus as he opened the door, and we stepped into what looked like a control room of some kind. There were monitors everywhere, at least 100 of them, perhaps more, viewing all the different corridors, corners, and floors of this interior dimensional maze. And near the center I saw another impossible monstrosity. This one had to be at least 20 feet tall, judging from the angle of the camera. It was chained down on all sides so that it was difficult to be sure how large it was at its full height. It looked like a mad science experiment gone wrong, with the flesh twisted and peeled back all over its body. A mesh between a beast of the field and a man's lower torso. Its head was shaped like that of a bull with two bony, cracked horns curving towards the lighting fixture as its cold, dead hazel eyes peered towards the camera. It was looking towards us as if aware of its captivity, thinking of its escape. "This is why this place was built," Vincent told me, his voice hardly a whisper as we checked the other cameras. There were more creatures that I couldn't describe properly on the floors, roaming free and hunting for food, or perhaps just hunting to kill. It occurred to me in these endless corridors it was likely that nothing would be available for resources, so the only thing keeping these beasts going was sheer rage, and perhaps a means of energy, like the lights, I thought as I looked away from the monitors. I thought the commander Roland told us this place was from another reality, a step into an alien world. Why does all this look like we were the ones that made it? I asked, gesturing randomly towards the equipment. "Because this is a containment facility," a voice said from the right side of the control room. It was the old man, Marsh. He was coming in, dragging the corpse of Weatherby alongside him. "As I've tried to explain to the others so many times, these are the wild genetic creations that have no idea what they are, where they belong in the circle of life. This constant agony of nothingness that confines them here will only feed their anger, make them harder to control," he said, as he shut down the systems one by one. "I don't understand why our organization is doing this," I said. Marsh laughed. He told me that I knew already. Weaponizing these dimensional creatures and modifying them to our slaves would change the face of war forever. When they created this liminal space, it was meant for only one monster, that horrid minotaur that I saw chained to the core, but the experiments have spread like cancers. It's gotten out of control. I'll never admit it, but these things can't be contained here forever. The maze is going to eventually implode. He said that he'd seen what it can do firsthand. He passed me a picture of a younger woman, who I guessed was his daughter, and I complimented him, saying, "Take it she was brought here? That's why you'd come?" He told me how they turned this prison into a sacrificial pit. It's the only way to keep the creatures satisfied. He wandered and moaned and consumed everything in the maze, and people like us, people cast aside like her, were the bait. Consumed by their greed, and then, as a result, the maze grows. My hands began to tremble as I passed the picture back to him, realizing what he was implying. "I was told before I came here I was sent here to die. I thought that was just a wild exaggeration, but it was really a mission statement. They can't let these things loose in the real world," I whispered. "And they can't kill them. Maintaining the maze and discovering what we can about them is the safest choice. But it comes with a cost. Feeding these beasts takes a lot of lives. More and more are losing theirs from what is ultimately a forgotten cause." Vincent claimed that it would never be enough. "Listen to yourself. We can't go home either. We don't even know how. We need to find a way to kill these things." "Marsh, you said the prison could collapse. Could we do that and eliminate the threats from the inside?" asked the old man. He rubbed his beard thoughtfully as we marched out of the control room, and he nodded, saying, "It'll take a little bit of time to get in position. There's a way. I've been there before. But I won't be doing anything until I found my daughter." I nodded, checking what little equipment we had left. That we should move together from now on, I said. 1,600 hours. I don't think I should log time anymore, as it's become a constant threat to my sanity. I know that we've been here longer than I'm recording, yet the markers from our journal, they keep me tethered to what I once understood as reality. The endless blank hallways have stretched out on and on as Vincent and Marsh and I keep searching for the last survivor of our group, our commanding officer, along with a daughter that he lost, and I doubt is even alive. I say that because of the creatures that we've seen here in this hellhole, and Marsh has been more and more lost as time goes on. His earlier ramblings about knowing a way to stop these monsters seem like a faint memory now, as I pull Carter to the side and mutter, "How long are we going to let this old man keep us wandering? We have no idea what part of this dimensional prison that we're in." Carter's eyes were bloodshot. His lips were dry. Another reminder that we were out of time. We had no resources left and our energy was scarce at best. Maybe we could find a way back to the command center? Find an exit? He asked, coming to terms with the fact that our search for Roland seemed endless. Before I could speak, I heard Marsh holler for us. It was a cry of distress. Despite our misgivings about the man, we dashed to where he was, in another large empty chamber, and as soon as I saw what had made him scream, I felt numb. Roland, or what was left of him, was left on display in the center of the room. His body was spliced apart, every which way you could imagine, naked and dripping blood as it was held together by what looked like long black chains. Suddenly I realized where we were. This was the center of the maze, where earlier we had seen the strange bull-like beast, the Minotaur, as Marsh had called it. But his story was now falling apart. He'd claimed that this was another mad experiment that had failed, and that was what we had seen. And now we were viewing it for ourselves, and all I saw was a tortured, broken man. And yet his organs still seemed to have life in them, as a strange energy pulsed amidst the chains. We're the experiment. Fed into the machine to face these beasts and eventually becoming them, I realized. I heard shrieks coming from the nearby corridor, and I realized that the beasts that we had been chased by earlier were likely coming here soon to harvest what was left of Roland. Marsh fell to his knees, defeated and frustrated, as he screamed and punched the blood-soaked floor. I knew he was thinking of the daughter he sacrificed everything for. Then I turned to Vincent, who was cocking his gun and aiming it at his own mouth, tears streaming down his face. "This isn't how I want it to end. I'd rather be dead than used for this freak show," he whispered in a raspy voice. I screamed for him to stop, but it was too late. The echoes of the bullet smashing through his skull alerted the creatures to my location, and I tugged at Marsh, urging him to stand. "Go without me. My children want me here," he insisted as he pushed me away. I didn't have time to argue, as the different shambling beasts were already in the core. So I ran to the left, and I didn't look back. Time unknown. How long has it been since then? And I've somehow survived. Perhaps it's been a few days, or a few months. I wait for the others to arrive as I wander this place, forced to feed off the men that are left behind, use their carcasses as shelter and security. The creatures are beginning to treat me as part of the maze, giving me my own territory, a backroom of sorts that I can wander and scribble on the walls whatever I wish. This is where I began to write warnings in my own experience of the time here, using the long fingernails and rudimentary bones that I have left from our grotesque meals, to which I can remind myself of how I once was human too. I think I walk like a man, but I can't claim to understand the world beyond the maze. Here, thanks to the endless cycles of time, I can become a god. This is likely what the experiment was meant for anyway. Although the creatures I've seen are bizarre, I've also seen how beautiful they can be. How could something so amazing and full of life be a nightmare? I returned to the command center and I saw Marsh on the cameras not long ago, wandering a different part of the maze. His skin is all but gone now, and he walks like a shadow with a limp. He continues to search for something that's long gone. Perhaps may not even be here. Or as I have begun to lose track of time, I've understood there's no rhyme or reason to the flow of events here. We're simply here. The past is always, and the future is always. I found the place where Marsh claimed this place could be opened to the rest of the world. I walk by it often to see who is there. Sometimes I think of escape, but I doubt the world would recognize me for what I am now. The other day I saw a woman, a girl. She seems familiar, a distant memory from the life I could have had. I killed her instantly, and I used her bone marrow to restore my own energy. Her eyes were dead and accusing. I think she'd agree it was better for her to end it here, on the threshold, than become a part of the labyrinth. I think she may have been connected to me. Perhaps to the old man? He's part of the maze now, his body meshing with the walls, becoming absorbed. Same will happen to me. I don't know if I'll return to the world beyond, although the way is open to me. I don't think anything is there for me waiting. I don't think I belong there, as I have lost my own sanity. I'll wander these corridors stripped of any memory of what was once human, and be the maze itself. Eventually I will die, my body absorbed and cycle repeated, until one day our world meets with the one beyond these walls. End recording. File under Daedalus test subject number 13. Mission considered a success, minus the casualty of one Luca Marsh. Continue process of creating new mutations. Begin plans for next mission by end of month. Mission statement: to expand parameters of dimensional gateways to explore further details of the new dimension and determine the flow of time within. Hey there kids, it's me, MrCreepyPasta, and I just wanted to tell you thank you for watching tonight's video, or listening to tonight's episode of the podcast. And as always, I want to give a very big thank you to everybody who supports me on Patreon. If you scroll down to the description at the very bottom, you'll find a whole bunch of people there. Also, we've included this nice little scrolling thing because the number of people who support me on Patreon has gotten so big that I'm afraid it might actually max out the description. So we've included this here as the little scrolling text on the end screens. So everybody on that scrolling text, everybody I'm about to mention right now and mispronounce all of your names, and everybody who can donate even $1, thank you so much. A very big thank you to Jordan Alexander Sanchez, Stephanie Butler, Reaper61167, Bobby Karman, Tristain, Pelton, Chance Burnett, Diana Kraus, Thicky McQuicky, SamaHigh, CrusaderChocobo, SpookyShel, Atomaurus, Grand Moth the Milky, Big Smoke 369, Captain Scurvy, SaltyIrishPoet, Estebean, Brayden Morris, Nate Kuhl, HorrorFan1212, Our Minute Second Time, Kyle Reznak, David Martin, Scare-ington the Unkempt, Robert Malcolm, Angelus, Spanky, Snoochie Boochie, Seclude, Lupita Galvin, That Creepy Chick, Tyler Fletcher, Merxenum, Red Shadow Cat, Xavier the Cheyenne, Demix, Sean Cadieu-baker, 6 Gay Rats in a Trenchcoat, Turtleman, Rob Like Sharp Things, Cryolinian, Xavier Graphius, Lord Life's Best, Goring Tremagacy, Maria Walker, Emily Mitchell, Crazy Kid, Mr. Marcus Blitz, Aka Limchok, Dirt Diver 030, Matt Bach, Voice of Sand, Coffee Zombie, Hidden Tiger, Shelly J, Jeremy H, Psychomel, Nana, Deleted Account, Melted Lake, Tali Sue, William King, Darth Miver, Michael Ortiz, Titanic Aries, Bardo Hawk 764, Lambda M98, Harley, Sashi Suzaku, Cronut 509, Kaylee Ambrose, Suji Campbell, Stricken, Freddy Krueger, Happy Birthday Jason Wilson, Lisa Cottrell, Caspian, Hades Nephew, Tater Chip, Acid System, Prozac and Pancake Appreciation Society, Benjamin Welverick, Cryptic Nightmares, Kiri the Sloth, Fester's Lampshade, Sky Harbor, Nico Kyle, Rafael Rodriguez, The Ginger Bros, Aaron Stormcrow, Daniel Polson, and Corey Kenshin. As always, thank you guys so much, because you guys help me do everything that I do here. You guys help pay authors for stories and commission stories and do everything that I can do to make this channel and make this podcast the best it could possibly be. So thank you all for supporting me here. And as always, everyone, sweet dreams.